Football coverage from the experts. The Blaze Alexander Family Dealerships Tailgate 2023 is powered by Nittany Beverage, Joseph C. Hazel, Stocker Chevrolet, Your Cigar Den, and Monte Cristo Lounge. Metzler Forest Products, Blaze Alexander Family Dealerships, Beer Belly's Beverage, Lion Country Kia, the Penn State All Sports Museum, Ben Franklin Technology Partners, Center Care, Bobby Ray Hall Honda of State College, PJ Harrigan's, Joel Comfort Toyota and BMW, W.R. Hickey Beer Distributor, the Applied Research Laboratory at Penn State University, Joel Comfort Quality Pre-Owned, the Dalton Group at Morgan Stanley, Center County Recycling, Bobby Ray Hall Lexus of Lewistown, Century 21 Mertz & Associates, and by the Student Bookstore. Now, the Penn State Football Tailgate Show on 99.5, 107.5 The Bus and Bigfoot Country Legends, and simulcast on the Blue White Illustrated YouTube channel. Now, here's Thomas Frank Carr and Aeneas Hawkins.
Penn State football playing one more time in 2023. I'm Thomas Frank Carr. Aeneas Hawkins is in Atlanta, so he is not here.
He's too cool for us.
He's too cool. This is what happens when you have charismatic former football players that you work with, is that eventually they get these cool things that they can do, like going and staying in Adam Brenneman's house down in Atlanta for the game. If you check out the internet, you've seen some of the state media stuff with Aeneas. We're happy for him.
Of course.
And I'm happy that Kyle is here with me. Kyle Leff, producer Kyle, is now ascending into the number 2 seat for the show today. So appreciate you being here and running the board and doing all kinds of stuff today.
Excited to be here today, and people will see my hands move closer and closer to cameras as the day goes on. That's just how it looks and how it works. Hopefully today we have no cameras breaking, though, because we did have that happen at the end of a show, and that was beautiful to watch.
Oh, yeah, that happened earlier this year. But, one last thing that I would say, we're in the season of being thankful, right? So one thing I'm very thankful for is that this game is happening in 2023. Because one of my least favorite things is later in history to go back and be like, hey, what happened in that Ole Miss Penn State game? And it's like, well, it happened in 2024, so it's part of the 2024 season. No. The whole thing happened encapsulated perfectly in the fall and winter of 2023. So that's nice.
That's why I despise basketball seasons, because it's like, the 2014-2015 season. So currently, Detroit Pistons, worst team ever. Yeah. Terrible team. But they tied the record for the 76ers in the 2014-15, 2015-16 season. I remember 3 years I have to remember off the top of my head to understand exactly when those records were set.
Yeah.
It's annoying.
I already glazed over in the middle of that. There's just too many numbers. There's too many numbers. Luckily today for you, we are going to be slicing through all of that to talk about the team. And really, I think that this is an interesting matchup.
It's a very interesting matchup.
Both of these teams are pretty similar. Just on a surface level, two teams that arrived in a similar place by different styles of football, but both are 10-2. Both want to get to 11 wins for program, history. Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss. I didn't realize this. Ole Miss has never had an 11-win season.
Never.
James Franklin and the Nittany Lions can be the first and only team to win all New Year's 6 bowl games. Now, none of those came in the college football playoffs, so there's always that bitter pill on the backside of that. But that's kind of the point here. Losses to college football playoff teams, New Year's 6 teams, the best historically. The best 4 teams in college football: for Ole Miss, Georgia, Alabama; for Penn State, Ohio State, and Michigan. And I thought, throughout the week, both head coaches spoke at media days. We had a lot of media access to these coaches, and on yesterday, a lot of these similarities popped up in the questions that were asked. And Lane Kiffin said nobody else has gotten over that Georgia Alabama hump either, other than LSU. And for Penn State, James Franklin actually went back to the question to point out, we're the only Big Ten team, meaning Penn State, that has won the Big Ten championship outside of those 2 teams.
Yeah.
So it is an interesting comparison of 2 teams on the cusp. They're getting there in different ways, but this should be a very close game. Lots of caveats that we're going to get through today. I think this is just the caveat show.
It is. It's the caveat bowl today. There is issues here and there and everywhere, and players moving around and flying around, and transfers happening up, down, left, and right, especially with Ole Miss, because they are a team, as they have stated, built on the transfer portal. And they have owned that and been like, yeah, that's us. And I believe they have the best transfer portal gains so far for this next season, too.
Number 1 player, Walter Nolan, defensive tackle from Texas A&M, committed to the program. Yep.
Not half bad.
That goes into NIL. That goes into Lane Kiffin and his opinion on the portal. And James Franklin, this is the politicking of James Franklin, right? Is like Penn State would love to be a portal team in terms of like being in contention for a Walter Nolan. I imagine they would want to be in contention for all of their needs they need to fill.
Of
right?
course.
Corner, tackle, all these things that we've talked about, especially on the Blue White Illustrated YouTube channel over the last month or so. But it's been pretty much dead silent in the portal for the Nittany Lions, and I don't think that's necessarily by choice.
Yeah.
That is the new NIL era of college football that Penn State has not been having as much success in the portal this year, despite the fact that I think they have the same amount of needs. But
they do.
But that's the spin of we're going to recruit and develop. We're not going to be a big portal team, and to be fair, they haven't been a big portal team, like in terms of heavy recruitment in the portal.
They've gone for places and players they really want here and there. Chop Robinson, I believe, was from the portal.
Yep.
The past couple of years, we have Felkins, the kicker, was from the portal. Stuff like that. Little
Arnold
pieces here and
Ebiketie, Mitchell Tinsley, players that have made an impact. Johnny Dixon was a transfer portal player. So yeah, I think that there's it's just what part of the conversation do you want to bring up in these situations? That's been an interesting just comparison, different sides of the same coin. We're here today for the next 90 minutes to talk about the game, talk about the matchups, and, what's been going on for the last month in Penn State football. We haven't had a chance to sit down and do this since the end of the regular season. They've changed coordinators and hired two.
Yeah, changed two, hired two.
Yes. So we'll talk a little bit about that today. I think there's some interesting parts of having Tom Allen and Andy Koldenicki a part of the bowl contingent, but not being coaches. And we'll get to, of course, the game and some of the other games around the bowl atmosphere. There's one last night that I think Penn State fans want to revel in a little bit.
But I have a question for you. Does it involve a Pop-Tart? Because if it doesn't, I don't want to talk about it.
I know that dead air is not great, but I'm genuinely speechless at the I guess I shouldn't be surprised. The blatant sellout product placement for mayonnaise and Pop-Tarts. Here's my first hot take of the day. Pop-Tarts are trash. They're not a sponsor of this show.
Okay.
They're not going to be a sponsor of this show that I can imagine in the near future. Pop-Tarts are garbage. They are a garbage pastry that people have decided that we're going to like because, ironically, I think, and then a lot of people had childhood where they ate garbage for breakfast. The best Pop-Tart is one that has been put in the toaster, and that arrives at barely edible.
But it arrives at edible.
Yeah.
Is what matters here. And the Pop-Tart was eaten after being toasted, I believe is what happened.
Sure.
Arizona or Kansas State or whoever it was ate a toasted Pop-Tart. So they enjoyed themselves.
Good. I'm glad everyone's having a good time. But seriously, the Mayo Bowl, the problem was the game was a runaway, right?
Yes.
And I heard 45 minutes of bad mayonnaise jokes. Like mayonnaise stand-up. What are we doing? First off, I don't want to get into it. We should talk about football, but
I know.
man,
I got you off track. I'm so sorry.
I'm sure we're going to get a lot of Chick-fil-A references today as well. We're going to get a lot of eating chicken. We're going to get a lot of after the game, you're going to get that Chick-fil-A. We're going to get a lot of that today. So I probably I'm just going to mute everything for the bowl season. Like, it's clear that the bowl season is product placement at its highest level of ridiculousness. Stephen Light here on the Blue White Illustrated YouTube channel says, thanks for a great year of 2023 coverage. Stephen is a regular on our channel. You can be as well if you're listening on 99.5 The Bus. And what's the
1037, 1043 Bigfoot Country Legends and 99.5, 1075 The Bus.
Thank you very much. I, of course, have been here in the past and I've only memorized 99.5 The Bus. So I appreciate you giving us the full rundown of where you can listen to this. If you're listening there, happy holidays. Thank you for being a part of our 2023 coverage. But you can join us at Blue White Illustrated on the Blue White Illustrated YouTube channel. We have a special deal going on right now. It is just $1 to get 2 months of access to BlueWhiteIllustrated.com. And that is only for our YouTube patrons. So if you're listening to the YouTube channel right now, first off, tell your friends, like the video, etc. It's the second to last day of the year. People are probably out of their routine. Remind them, hey, we're doing the show today. The Tailgate show is out there. You can watch, and of course, you can listen on the radio. But we are at some point going to talk about football today, and not just Pop-Tarts and mayonnaise. I'm now imagining Pop-Tarts and mayonnaise as a meal.
Terrible combination.
72 degrees in a dome.
Yes,
they're going to have the dome closed.
A balmy 72 degrees inside of Hotlanta. that is the temperature. I know. Very big discussion today.
Yes.
The wind is going to be a major factor in this game.
Absolutely.
Probably some sheer cold going around here.
Coming from that vent on the northwest side.
Yes.
Yeah. Here's the worst part is that now I'm on a roll. I am incidentally, through my outrage and disgust, being a shill for Duke's Mayo and Pop-Tarts.
Yes, you are.
By bringing
And
it up
Chick-fil-A,
again.
too.
And Chick-fil-A. Well, Chick-fil-A's fine.
And the crazy part is, for those who have not heard this story, in Atlanta and Mercedes-Benz, there's Chick-fil-A everywhere. There's Chick-fil-A's across the entire stadium. The problem is it is mainly an NFL stadium. And NFL plays on Sunday when Chick-fil-A is closed. It's on Saturday.
It's Saturday, so
Chick-fil-A's open.
Chick-fil-A in force. We're going to talk about more Penn State football coming up next. We're going to get into the offense. Jackson Dart, Drew Allar, quarterback breakdown.
Oh, yeah.
That's next.
It's December.
Technically, we're all at work, but are we really? Greg, I do want to get to you, though, as you are in Atlanta talking to people and seeing things and being at practice. So very valuable amount of information you've got for us this week about what's going on with the Nittany Lions. First off, happy belated Christmas, happy New Year. And what do you got for Penn State coming up, what they've been talking about this week in Atlanta?
Yeah, same to you guys. Good morning. So today was defensive players. So Anthony Poindexter led a group of 5 Nittany Lion defenders to a news conference at 8:30 this morning. That wrapped up about 45 minutes ago or so. It was the same guys that talked at local bowl media day, so not a whole lot of news coming out of it. Obviously, 2 guys that were there, Adisa Isaac, Curtis Jacobs, 3 actually, Daquan Hardy, made their NFL draft declarations between then and now. So Adisa Isaac was the most recent one, made it last night, said that he was, had some thoughts going back and forth in his head about what he wanted to do, finalized his decision and announced it pretty late last night. So he's happy with it. He's good to go for the NFL. He is going to play in the Peach Bowl. He said as a captain, he felt like it was, I'm going to use the word, he didn't use this word, but I'm going to use it, obligation to play, him and the rest of the captains, Theo Johnson and the others. So he'll be there. He's definitely going to play the first half. He said he may dial things back in the second half, going to kind of play it by ear. So we'll see. But I think that gives you, if nothing else, a window into something James Franklin, guys, has spent the better part of a month, actually more, talking about in how they craft a plan with these guys to try and get them to play in the game and not opt out, but also realize that, they're one day away, essentially, from one game anyway, away from going to the NFL draft and starting to realize their dreams in that perspective. So, we'll see. I think that, some guys will be on different snap counts than others, but ultimately these guys are going to be out there on the field, and we'll see what we get from them defensively with Anthony Poindexter leading the way.
Yeah, I think the hardest part about putting any prediction or any thoughts into a bowl game at this time of year, even with Penn State, with an opt-in culture of guys that normally maybe in other situations would be going to the NFL draft, would be following Chop Robinson, not playing in the game. We don't know how much they're going to play. So if it's just from a baseline level, how important is it to have these guys as a part of the travel roster, being there in Atlanta and participating to whatever level it is? How important is that?
Yeah, I think it's important for the entire team culture, and I think the team culture is pretty strong right now, as evidenced by what they've had with the portal, especially over the last couple of years, and not a ton of surprises, not the big guys jumping or anything like that. So I think that's a credit to what James Franklin's been able to build and what they've been able to do over the last several years, because it hasn't been that way. I think, like I said, I think we've gotten this fog about opt-outs after that Outback Bowl, which was, rightly, it was 8 guys then. It just hasn't happened other than that. And so the exception has become the rule in some people's heads, and that's kind of where we're at. So kind of figuring
the
out
Penn State Football Tailgate Show, driven by Blaze Alexander Family Dealerships.
This is the Penn State Football Tailgate Show, powered by Blaze Alexander Family Dealerships, celebrating more than 40 years of service to the community. Blaze Alexander Family Dealerships has a vehicle to fit your budget and transportation needs. Home of the $1,000 lowest price guarantee with 19 locations throughout Pennsylvania. I'm Thomas Frank Carr. Kyle left. Producer Kyle on the mic today, filling in for Aeneas. Happy to have you here. Happy for everyone and grateful for everybody here in the end of the year where we're just trying to make it to 2024.
We're almost there.
And everyone's reflective season and all of that stuff. Ryan on our Blue White Illustrated YouTube channel. Once again, we've got another super chat here, and I these are not that I'm going to say I have to, because that's the standard of what we do on the channel, and they're doing it here live on the show for everyone here, trying to explain for the radio crowd what's happening. But Ryan is a regular, so if you ever watch our YouTube channel, he is from Texas, and he gives us some good intel on Texas recruiting, some of the Texas recruits that Penn State is around. He is a valuable resource, and he's donated to the channel, says, thanks for amazing college football coverage, Penn State Insight in 2023. We are looking forward to continuing this in 2024. Appreciate him and all he's done for the channel. Appreciate you. Appreciate this collaboration we've done all year with Seven Mountains Media. This has been a very rewarding experience, so thank you to everyone involved. That is the end of my acceptance speech. Let's talk about some football.
Let's get to it.
Who is the better quarterback in this game? Because I think this is a really interesting conversation.
Better is a very loose term, because Jackson Dart has played more than Drew Allar has, I believe, so far in his career.
In his career, yes.
So people would say, oh, look at the stats and look at this and that and the other, but Drew Allar's only really played one season.
Yeah.
So the comparison is tough to make. But Jackson Dart's pretty darn good at quarterbacking.
Yes. So
where does your mind go? Where do you go?
It's. I think if you were to ask non-Penn State fans, everyone would clearly say Jackson Dart because of what you mentioned, the previous production in Lane Kiffin's offense, his ability to move the ball with his feet and with his arm, and just the historic profile he has as a college football quarterback. It's just this year has been so frustrating to watch from Drew Allar, and I think where I land personally is that they're not far off from each other. I would say Dart is the better quarterback from a play standpoint, from a production standpoint, from a diversity of skill set standpoint. But Allar's best is better than Jackson Dart.
They're in the same tier.
Yes. Well, that's the whole point of Drew Allar, is that he is bred for another tier. He is for the top tier of college football, quarterbacking, and potentially NFL. But we haven't seen it yet.
Yeah.
But where he's landed is kind of in a Jackson Dart adjacent place. So I want to go through some of the stats that I think are interesting, and we'll start with just the raw box score stats, because a lot of this is going to get into the offensive style and the way they play. This year, Jackson Dart had a step back with just under 3,000 yards, 2,984. 20 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. So not a ton of interceptions, but also Allar threw more touchdowns. I think part of that is the red zone. Allar is money in the red zone, 23 touchdowns on the season, 1 interception. That 1 interception thing has been the story of the season. His reluctance to throw the ball to the other team. Did it interfere his ability to throw the ball to his own team? And I asked him about that this year. And, at Bowl Media Day, I just had the conversation with him. Hey, it looks like you can see it. Like, you know what you're looking at, but you didn't always pull the trigger into some of those more aggressive windows. So what do you think the reason is? And his answer was, I don't think there's a specific reason, but one of the things I learned this year is that high school open is very different than college open. And you've got to lead receivers and throw guys open. You have to throw with some trust. Adding that last part.
Yeah.
And we saw him do that intermittently throughout the year. It led to what we saw this year from him, which was good, but nothing that stands out. I guess the interesting thing here is kind of some in the advanced metrics that I was looking at.
Yeah.
When you look at Jackson Dart and the way this offense plays, Jackson Dart's average depth of target, meaning how far on average he's throwing the ball down the field, is 10.5 yards. That is, I didn't check specifically, but that's got to be in the top 10 of college football quarterbacks. That is a very aggressive attack. When he throws the ball,
he's throwing first downs.
He's throwing it down the field. Yes, that's where he's targeting, is 10 yards down the field. Allar finished the season better at 8. Yeah. So, and again, yards per attempt, 3 yards better for Jackson Dart. A more aggressive offense, and that makes sense given Trey Harris, Dayton Wade, their receiving core. But the part I think that sticks out to me, and we talk about taking care of the football, we talk about not getting negative plays. It's not just interceptions. Jackson Dart takes a lot of sacks. 25 sacks this year. And even if you consider the fact that they threw generally the same amount of passes, Allar gives up a sack at half the rate that Dart does.
Allar didn't really go down this year.
No, 12 sacks this year.
It helps to have a really great O-line in front of you.
It does.
That's a positive thing.
Yes, absolutely. And Dart does not. Like, I think that's part of the conversation we'll get in here too today is like the nature of this offense and how much they aren't aggressive with the passing game. But then you look at the passer rating, first downs. A lot of these other metrics are virtually the same. And that leaves you in, I think you give the benefit of the doubt here to Dart. But the Penn State offense this week is an absolute wild card. There's a lot of different things that are going on with the Nittany Lions coming into this bowl game that I don't know we have answers for. And we'll start with just a couple of these things today. And the first one is who's playing and how much for the Penn State offense?
That is a very good question. And the question has to then start with that O-line we mentioned, because that is the player we do not know about is Olu Fashanu.
Yep.
We don't know exactly how much he's going to play today. Of course, he is there. He's declared for the draft. We know he's going to go there. He's a top 5 pick.
Yep.
He's going top 5, top 10 at worst.
Yep.
We know he's going to be there, but we don't know how much he's going to play. Is he going to be there for the first and last snap of the game and just get in as like I played in the game, yay.
Yeah.
Or is he going to play every down?
Yeah. So this is going to be an interesting one because the way all of our announcements throughout the last month of who's going to play, who's not going to play, who's going to be there, who's not going to be there. Olu's, I believe, and I'm paraphrasing here, his announcement was, I'm excited to be in Atlanta with my brothers.
Yes.
That is very intentionally worded. That is a James Franklin special in terms of politicking the words.
It's a politics answer. It's I'll be there.
Yeah,
Are you going to play? Are you going to play? I'll be there.
Yeah, so it is, I think, mitigated by the fact that you have Drew Shelton on the roster, and this has to be his game to ascend into the role next year, right? So he's been preparing for this for 2 years now. So I think that is, you feel a little bit better about that. The wild card here, the true wild card is Caden Wallace, because you mentioned Penn State has a good offensive line, and I think people quietly stopped complaining about Caden Wallace this year. Mm-hmm. Just kind of faded.
He played well.
He played well. He played well enough to be drafted into the NFL, to be a firm draft pick, not day 7. I think like maybe he goes
4th, 5th.
Yeah, but that's where you find starting offensive linemen in the NFL that aren't those top tier Olu guys. First round. And then you get a lot of starters from the 4th and the 5th, especially if he's going to be a guard. So, like, not to get into that whole conversation, but it is informative of he doesn't need this game specifically to show what he can do. He's going to be in the Shrine Bowl as well, so he's got another game after this. How much risk is worth it? And when we ask that question, now you're talking about maybe J.B. Nelson or Javen Williams playing right tackle. And that is much more of a different story than just, Olu not playing in the game. If Penn State is going to be operating without either of their tackles, that changes what you can do and want to do on the offensive side of the ball. And I think, again, it puts more emphasis on the running game, which for both teams has been the story of the year. Quinshaw Junkins is how this offense runs for Ole Miss and Penn State. He is very good. He is very fun to watch. And then Penn State obviously runs through Singleton and Allen. So we could have a very boring football game if everything goes running game and two decent defenses, decent and up, meaning Penn State's defense is not decent, it's good. But like as a baseline, both of these defenses are competent against the run, and then you get into some of the elite stuff that Penn State can do. We might have a slugfest. That's one avenue for this game to go.
It could go that way. It also could go the complete opposite direction, which is because of who Lane Kiffin is, because of his creativity on the offensive end. You could see some crazy things pulled out of him. Yeah. And with Penn State, not having an offensive coordinator, or technically not having one for this game, we could see some changes thrown in there. Some like, we've had a month to prepare for this game. Let's go have fun. Yeah. Let's go screw around with some things and see what happens.
Well, it's not even, and this is something, I was thinking about a lot this particular week, is it's not even let's put in some trick plays. It's Jay Wansider and Ty Howell had 6 days to implement the changes they want from when Mike Yurcich was fired to playing Rutgers. And then they had another 6 days to do what they wanted to do and slightly tweak it again for Michigan State. what do they do with a month? What is the offense that they had the vision for that they couldn't quite get to in those final 2 games? I think that's a huge part of this. And then, of course, you have the conversation of Trey Wallace is back.
Yes, finally.
Finally. So what does that do to the offense with the coordinators they have in place who were more interested in getting guys involved that were not just Keandre Lambert-Smith? A lot of the offense ran through Dre throughout the year. They showed a diversity of how they wanted to use him. They showed some big play with Amari Evans. How does all of that? There are so many tendrils like creeping out of this Penn State offense. This would go a bunch of different ways.
Also, you now have a new offensive coordinator, so I'm guessing he's had at least something here or there that's been stated in. So maybe they try and put a little bit of what he wants to do for next year in, so we can kind of see how certain players look with his system. Like, we could get, there's an amalgamation of different things we can get in this game. We could see what we had with Yursich. We could see what J1 Sider wants to do. We could all see what Andy wants to do.
Yep.
There could be a 3 or 4 voices going into its offensive system, which could completely change how it looks for us. We don't know.
The one thing I would say about that is I think when you say there could be 3 or 4 voices,
not in terms of calling plays, but in terms of like styles that could be blended into one thing.
But Penn State is going to have a cohesive plan. So like, I guess the idea is if you have too many cooks in the kitchen, that could be a possibility. But James Franklin would not allow that to happen with this offense. I don't believe that they would. It's Ty Howell and J1 Sider's show.
Yes,
they're going to be the guys that determine the fate of this offense. But you're right, as far as the input and listening to good ideas, they can come from a number of places. But I guess I want to make sure fans that are listening,
clarified.
They don't think that, oh no, this is going to be a disjointed offense. I think it's going to be my assumption and how I've predicted this game. We're going to see a better Drew Allar. We're going to see a better offense. We're going to see more cohesion because that's what we saw at the end of the season, despite having some injuries in that game against Rutgers. So it's very interesting. I'm personally betting on the positive, but I can see it going either way, depending on who's playing for the Nittany Lions.
We could have a lot of things. A lot of things could change here and there. I am very excited to see what Drew Allar looks like because I think he'll look really good. I have confidence he'll play really well today, and all of a sudden everyone in the nation will go, oh my gosh, Drew Allar, Heisman candidate next year. And we'll be like, calm down, chill out for a little bit, okay? Yeah. We're not doing the Caleb Williams thing of saying, oh my God, Heisman candidate, he's the greatest thing to ever live.
Yep.
Let's give him some time. It's one game.
Well, we already did that in 2023 in the offseason before this season.
We did.
So it's the cat is out of that particular bag. Not that, that... I just realized how out of date that phrase is. The cat is like, who is putting a cat in a bag? And if you are, you're a beast.
Or pulling a rabbit out of a hat. Why is a rabbit in a hat?
Yeah. Some comments here from the YouTube channel. Robert Bosfield talking about Drew Allar says the slow development makes it frustrating to watch Drew, and I think that's I agree with that a lot. This is another thing that maybe I was going to talk about later, but we're talking about it now. So the point of Drew Allar, and I think the frustration and the lack of patience from Penn State fans is he wins a particular way. When he wins at his best, it's the best you can do at the position outside of the unicorns like Pat Mahomes and Josh Allen that can do everything. The Lamar Jacksons that can bring a different element. But he can be the height of the position, where if you just want to win games, get yards, feel good, college ideas flow better through Bo Prabula or a guy like Jackson Dart. So it is, I think, from a analytical perspective, from a football perspective, it's worth waiting for Drew Allar for that development. But it has to happen.
Yeah, how long do you wait until it's too late?
Yeah, and that's why Mike Yursich isn't here anymore. Michael McCollin also with a super chat here. He says, Happy New Year's, Blue White Illustrative friends. Hoping to see the offense give a performance that's worthy of the exceptional effort the D has given this season. If they get that, I think it's pretty clear Penn State should be... It's hard to say. If the offense plays up to the defense's level, this game's over.
Yeah, this game will be over in the first quarter. Yeah. It'll be done real quick, real easy. But will they play?
Yes.
Will they get there? We don't know.
And is the defense going to be able to play at the level that we saw this year, given some of the opt-outs? Key matchups. We're going to get to that next on the Penn State defense on the Penn State Football Tailgate Show, here presented by Blaze Alexander Family Dealerships.
Are you a displaced corporate executive or someone ready to leave the corporate rat race for the American dream? Are you looking for a side hustle while working your current job, or do you want to diversify, build wealth, or leave a legacy? Check out My Perfect Franchise. Andy Ludicky is a franchise consultant with extensive experience placing people like you with the perfect franchise to manage. Whether things are booming or there's a downturn in the economy, the best way to protect your investment is to be in the right business. Andy has personal experience managing franchises and is ready to share his knowledge with you. More importantly, he's here to get you into the right business so you can be successful and use your unique years of expertise to their fullest potential. Consider franchise ownership on a hands-off or day-to-day management level, whatever suits your needs. His services are 100% free, and he's here to help if you have any questions about business ownership. Check him out on the Blue White Illustrated message board or email Andy at myperfectfranchise.net to get started today. And they might be getting a weapon back, and they might look different than we saw previously. So, Greg, what do you have on Trey Wallace as far as what you've seen this week?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest smile I saw in Atlanta so far this week is from him on the practice field yesterday. I mean, you can just tell how happy he is to be back out on the field. I mean, look, they're not going to, when the availability report comes out Saturday morning, I'm going to expect them to list him as questionable just because. So we're not, I'm not going to sit here and say he's guaranteed to play based on what I saw yesterday. I'd be shocked if he didn't. Now, again, I don't know if you're going to be able to bring him back in and play him a 100% regular snap load. We'll have to wait and see. He hasn't played in a while, so time will tell on that. But he looked good yesterday, guys. He was doing a drill with Jaywan Sider where they were doing the, as you guys know, and if you ever watch T. Frank's practice videos, bag drill, where they're kind of working on moving through hits and stuff like that. And he jumped right over top of it. I mean, just leaped right over it. So he looks good. I do expect him to play. And Drew Allar, Theo Johnson. I mean, there were a couple guys today too. You can say on one hand, what else would your teammates say? But it was evident, and if you read Nate's story from yesterday too, you'd get the same impression that missed this guy big time. And I think maybe it was undervalued how much he was missed this year. So getting him back in any capacity is going to be a boost for this offense.
What are you looking for from the offense, Fitz? Just generally with the way that the season has gone that I outlaid earlier in this particular game, what do you want to see from? Is there anything left that you're interested to learn about the springboard to 2024 or putting a button on 2023?
Buddy, I have no idea because you looked at those last two games and they did really good things on offense with Jaywan and Ty Howell calling the plays. And I think you're going to have to try and squeeze whatever juice is left out of that. And then, before you make the transition to Andy Koltanecki, of course, for those listening, Andy's not going to put in a new offense and expect them to run it, by 15 practices or whatever in December. So you're going to lean on what you
Now back to the Penn State Football Tailgate Show, driven by Blaze Alexander Family Dealership. Be the smartest person at your tailgate. Get the expert's view of today's game with Aeneas Hawkins as he gives you the key matchups. Brought to you by Stalker Chevrolet. For your next vehicle purchase, come to Stalker Chevrolet and save with low interest rates. And remember, only at Stalker Chevrolet will you get the Stalker Advantage with the purchase of any new vehicle.
As I have made clear already, I am not Aeneas Hawkins.
Neither am I.
I can't even get those velvety low tones. Just excellent voice, excellent presence. I'm not going to be able to get there for these key matchups.
We're also shorter than him. Not as good a football at him.
Yeah. A lot of differences. But we are going to give you the same excellent analysis. I think that for a key matchup in this game, there is one place this game turns, and that is corner versus receiver. Penn State secondary versus Trey Harris and versus the Ole Miss passing attack, but specifically Trey Harris, because he is a guy that, talking to David Eckert, former Blue White Illustrated reporter who now covers Ole Miss, we talked to him on Friday. He could not stop gushing about Trey Harris and his ability to take over games. That is the one area of this game, not having Johnny Dixon, that I think opens up the question of can Penn State keep the passing attack from changing the math in this game, because Penn State, I believe, is going to be able to corral Quinshon Judkins. They've done it all season, and we can get into in just a little bit how the offense works and why this is important, but Jackson Dart and the way this offense has operated all year is when you need a big play, when you need a third down, or you need an explosive play to get a drive going. Trey Harris, Jackson Dart, throwing the ball down the field like we described in the previous segment. So does Penn State have enough outside corners in order to corral the passing attack. We were not privy to the information that Kalen King was going to play in this game.
Yes.
And again, like Olu, and maybe more like Hayden Wallace in this situation, how much does Kalen King need to play? Need is the important word here because he's going to the NFL.
He's going to be a first rounder. It's just where does he fall?
Right. He's going to be a day 1 or 2 pick. Can he do anything in this game to salvage his first round potential? I don't think the one game is going to change that. I think this past season corner is interesting.
It's a weird spot to be.
Yeah,
it's tough.
You have an elite year of production in 2022, but most teams go with what have you done for me lately when they're applying their draft analysis. He's not going to have elite traits to be a gadget, like a freakazoid corner that everyone wants, where he's got the blazing speed to be a cover one corner, like a man coverage guy that prioritized in the first round. He can play both man or zone. He's a really good corner in the soft skills of the position, but this year those skills didn't necessarily equate to production. One game against Trey Harris, maybe that puts him on the map again into maybe the second round. You know, what is he balancing outside of I want to play with my team one more time from that perspective? That is going to inform how much he wants to play in this game. But I think the opt-ins, and I'm going to call it that way, from guys that didn't have to play in this game, that are playing in this game, there have been more of them, and they have been to a more vocal degree than I was expecting. And with Kalen King, that brings, I think, the conversation about this matchup, which was going to be dire, back to even. I think Penn State is now, at best, even with Cam Miller, a guy who played a lot this year, and with Daquan Hardy's playing in the game, and now Kalen King. So that matchup is going to be critical. Even with King on the field, Harris can make some plays, and how they defend the pass, I think, is going to be critical to how this game goes.
He is a stud on the defensive side of things, Kalen King. We know he is. We know he is. He's going to be great. It, as you said, is an interesting thing of like how high could he get because of having a great game. And I'm just going to bring it back in history a little bit. 3 years to be exact. For anyone who watched the LSU, I believe, Clemson game, saw Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase absolutely torch A.J. Terrell.
Yep.
A.J. Terrell was going to be a top 5 pick. He did not go top 5 in that draft, fun fact, because he got just slaughtered. He came 16th out of the 3 cornerbacks. It was Jeff Okudah, C.J. Henderson, and then him third at 16th.
Yeah.
He was going to be a top 5, top 6, 7 guy. And then he got torched for like 5,000 yards and 7 touchdowns.
Against 2 of the best receivers in the NFL.
But that was the problem, was that he didn't need the game. He could have sat out the game and gone to the NFL, and he said, I'm going to play in the game, and then got destroyed in just a...
And that can happen at corner.
It could happen at corner. That's the point, is that if you're going up against elite talent, Trey Harris, you have the risk reward is major there. If Kalen King has a great game, it could boost him up into the first round as a solid 27th level guy.
Yeah.
Or it could be a negative. He could get destroyed by Trey Harris, and NFL people will say, but look what you did recently for me. You got destroyed by Trey Harris.
The two, and we can include here too, Marvin Harrison Jr., the two bona fide receivers that you went up against this year.
And you're going up against them in the NFL, and you can't cover them. I don't know how much I can trust you.
Yeah. So it is, I commend him for playing, because a lot of people, when it comes down to their risk reward feelings about that situation, they're going to protect what they've done already. And this goes back to like Kalen King's confidence in himself, that even after the game against Marvin Harrison Jr., you never really saw him slip from a confidence standpoint. He played the same. And I said this on a couple other shows. I think what happened this year, and talking to him a little bit, and he talked about diving deeper into film study, understanding the offense better, and trying to know what's coming. I think what happened this year is he played, first off, I think he played a little more zone this year. And he tried to anticipate and jump routes. But he did it in a way where he didn't give up a lot of big plays. But he did give up passes because he was trying to make a big play instead of just playing his zone and kind of letting things flow.
I believe the correct term you're looking for is he was in his own head.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. The burden of knowledge. Football can be a little bit overwhelming if you are saying, okay, I see this route in front of me. I'm predicting what's about to happen based on my film study and et cetera, et cetera. And now you're not playing. Now you're thinking about what you're doing instead of just doing it. Now, that is going to benefit him in the future. He's going to be a great corner because of that, but the growing pains, even after a great season, can come in football when all of these things kind of come together. And that's really, to me, what I saw this year from Kalen King. So it's I even see buried in there a positive, you know, of a guy who was as good as he was last year. That didn't just go away. Something was different. And that's, you know, based on watching the film, I saw hints and shadows of that.
The other difference is also who he's got alongside him, because if I'm not mistaken, I was not, of course, here to watch the season prior, but I believe a certain NFL draft pick was the other cornerback alongside him.
Yeah.
Joey Porter Jr.
Yep.
Who was the number 1, and he was the number 2.
Yeah.
And then he became the number 1, and Johnny Dixon the number 2.
Yeah. And
so all of a sudden it flipped for him.
They did a little more with him this year as well, where there are sometimes in certain games I was saying, oh, they're giving him the Deion Sanders treatment, where he is one-on-one against a guy with half a field. Like the entire, like the 26 yards laterally, plus the entire field, and they're giving safety help into the box and letting him go one-on-one. So you can't give up a big play. Like, he knows, like, if I give a big play, this is a touchdown. So you aren't as aggressive breaking on routes, and everything's just a tick slower. Like, that's really what it was, mentally a tick slower, because of the burden of the things he was trying to do. But in this game, I think that there's a little bit of a difference here, the way that Ole Miss plays with that downfield passing attack. I think that more plays into what Kalen King can do, which is to run the route for you and get to the ball and bat it away or prevent you from even getting there. They're going to be in those situations in this game. And I want to get to the Ole Miss offense and the way they run the football. I've talked about this a lot this week before, you know, for the radio audience and for people that maybe haven't heard it, they're checking in for the first time before the bowl game. This offense uses deception, motion, and a lot of different offensive modern tricks to try and pull defenders out of their gaps. Whether it's the secondary flowing so that you don't have extra box support from the safeties because you're covering a receiver in motion, or if it's the quarterback running back options, you know, on a play where the quarterback can pitch the ball or run up the middle himself. Jackson Dart has a lot of designed runs in this offense. And the design is to pull the linebackers out and give gaps and seams. Penn State has been so good at ignoring all of that and destroying the run play anyway.
Yeah. They have some pretty good guys on defense that can do that.
Yes. And the entire D-line, if you look at the defensive tackles and the linebackers, guys that are primarily tasked with that, are all back. The defensive ends, not having Chop Robinson, is a blow. But you do have talent that, especially against the run, even guys like Zariah Fisher, are very good at contain, keeping guys in the tackle box. So it's going to be on Quinshaw Junkins and Jackson Dart to make players miss. It's going to be on broken tackles, not on broken plays. And what I've seen from this defense this year, I generally trust them. And Kyle, I know you haven't been here for a long time. I generally trust the Penn State defensive tackles, linebackers, and ends to stop the run. That is where we are. That is we have to accept that fact, or else we're not accepting reality of what we've seen. So it's going to be on those talented players to make those plays, and that's hard. That's really hard to continually do that if you don't have those 4 and 5 yard easy, quote, easy plays that the offense and the scheme is giving you, that you've got to go out and make the play every single time. And Junkins is good, but we've seen him be shut down at times, and when that happens, this offense doesn't function.
And the big thing Penn State has done this season that I have noticed, as someone who is new to this, as someone who came from Syracuse, which was not a great football school for a while, this team has a way of shutting down one part of the offensive side for the other team just off the bat.
Yeah.
That either the D-backs, the secondary just shuts down everything, or the D-line shuts down everything else. And then all of a sudden they have so many numbers everywhere else, it doesn't matter what you do. Yep. That one game it could be the D-line just is getting to the quarterback and they're not letting the run go by anywhere. And all of a sudden the secondary has less time to have to worry about broken coverages. They can just do what they need to do and they get it done. Or the secondary has a great game and all of a sudden the D-line can put one more person in the box and rush the quarterback and get after them and stop the run and all of it. And it just works. It works perfectly. It's a perfect system. And even without Johnny Dixon, without Chop Robinson, this defense is still elite. It was one of the top 5 best defenses in college football, and it wasn't 5.
Statistically, it was number 1, giving up 223 yards a game. They were 1 and 2 or something like that in pass and run defense.
It was top 2, and it wasn't number 2 all season. That was pretty much where this defense was. And even without Manny Diaz now, of course, who has left for Duke, they're still going to be great. they're not going to change almost anything on defense. They're going to put in different players here and there, but they're going to pretty much play the exact same system. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And they ain't gonna fix it.
It's interesting how they're the subtle things might be the play calling, but at the same time, I do have confidence in Anthony Poindexter as a play caller because he has done it before, and James Franklin has entrusted to him twice now as somebody who is a former play caller at UConn. Manny Diaz is special. The secret sauce is Manny. I think that goes into the conversation of why didn't you promote Anthony Poindexter. I think, just on a tangent here, if you promote Anthony Poindexter, then there is the expectation and the pressure of, okay, you've been in Manny Diaz's system now for 2 years, just do what Manny did. Bringing in Tom Allen allows him to be his own man. Former head coach, guy who's been a defense coordinator for a very long time, proven track record, all those are important, but also a guy that can sidestep the shadow that Manny Diaz cast. And James Franklin acknowledged there is a shadow. It is different now, what you need to be a defense coordinator at Penn State. So I just kind of an addendum onto that conversation of why Tom Allen, why not Anthony Poindexter, but also the confidence in Poindexter to get it done. The thing about this game, going back to stopping the run and what you said, being able to take things away, being able to stop the run, take that away through pressure without giving up big plays. If you can put this offensive line specifically in a bad situation, their tackles, Michael Petrus and Victor Kieran, are...
You can get after them.
Yeah.
You can get after them a little bit.
They play football.
They're not Olu.
No, they're not as bad as the Michigan State offensive tackles. But if you're going to group them in guys that Penn State's faced this year, they are closer to that group than some of the other ones they faced this year.
You trust Penn State without Chop Robinson to get after them.
Yes,
it's pretty
especially
much
if Adisa Isaac is playing.
Yes.
And that's an area where even, on the interior, this offensive line isn't great in pass protection as well. So they have set up this offense to throw the ball deep when they have to. And it's funny, you even look at Jackson Dart's time to throw, the way he operates, where quick passes, get the ball out quickly, or scramble, break the pocket, and make plays, and his time to throw is like 4.5, 5 seconds, because he's scrambling, because he's under pressure. The drop-back passing game is not the friend of the Ole Miss offense. Without Chop Robinson, you don't have the guarantees that you would. Like, I could guarantee that they would not be able to throw the football if Chop's on the field.
Oh, not at all.
But now Adisa's playing. Deny Dennis Sutton. This is kind of like the same thing with Drew Shelton. This is your time now. It's
show me.
Yeah, be the next Chop Robinson. And then, of course, you've got the depth they have at that position, plus Abdul Carter, all the different ways they can get to the quarterback. So they've got to be able to make Penn State pay with that get-out-of-jail-free card of Trey Harris.
Yes.
Coming back to our key matchup segment, they're going to be in some third and longs. They're going to get pressured. Jackson Dart is going to get flushed from the pocket, and he has to find Trey Harris for this offense to continue to move the football. Otherwise, the tempo doesn't matter. The speed of this offense doesn't matter.
He does. And we've discussed certain players, specific guys. Is there an X factor in this game? Is there someone you're watching for where you're like, this is the guy who I am paying attention to most on the Penn State defensive side of things? Is there one man you're like, I'm watching you today?
Yeah.
I'm not watching anyone else.
I think Daquan Hardy. Daquan Hardy is going to be interesting how they use him. Cam Miller played this year. They trust Cam Miller to play, maybe not in all of the biggest situations, but they're going to have to. So this is an opportunity for him to show positive growth for next year and have a positive view of the Penn State secondary next year, that maybe they don't need to bring in all those transfers we talked about. But Daquan Hardy's going to, I think, have the opportunity without Johnny Dixon to play some on the outside. So if he's playing on the inside, I don't think you need to really worry about Dayton Wade because Daquan Hardy's an NFL slot corner. Like his feet, his ability. Your Honor, asked and answered, we've proven that he is that guy. But he's going to have to play a little bit on the outside for the NFL. And how does he do that in this game? He's done very well this season, but these guys are big. And there's always that little thing in like jump ball situations. He's 5'9". There's a reason he's a slot corner. So we'll see how he plays against these big physical outside receivers from Ole Miss and a quarterback that's going to put the ball in good situations for them and not what Penn State saw a lot this year, which was some quarterbacks that were not necessarily the best players you've ever seen.
They weren't throwing players open. They were throwing two players. And that's the difference between them and Jackson Dart. Jackson Dart's going to throw guys open. Yeah.
Luke Altmaier was one of the best quarterbacks that Penn State saw this year for Illinois. That is, going into the game, that was his reputation. From a physical ability, skill set, he top 3 or 4 for sure. And that kind of informs you about what they went up against this year. But they, again, shut it down. And we're one of the best defenses in college football because of that. So we're going to get into a little bit more about the Penn State offense, flipping back to that side of the ball. We're going to get into the conversation we had a little bit earlier about what to expect from this team coming up next. It's the Penn State Football Tailgate Show on 99.5 The Bus and the Blue White Illustrated YouTube channel.
Morning, guys.
It's just
Adisa, we saw your NFL announcement last night. Can you explain the process that went into you making this decision and then choosing to announce last night? What kind of went into all of that?
Kind of just, thoughts throughout this bowl prep with family and, some coaches just getting last little thoughts out there of, what I should do. And I felt that it was best that I go to the NFL. But after I played this last game with my teammates, I felt like that was important to me and important to this team, so that's something I decided to do. But I just felt like this was the right time. Felt like I've put in enough work throughout these past 2 years, coming off an injury, put myself in a good position to make this kind of decision.
All right here, front row on the left.
Morning, guys. Jared Parker, 6 News. Coach Poindexter, obviously, week before last, when talking about Manny Diaz, you said, coming into this game, no one can call things quite like Manny Diaz. Everyone has their own uniqueness. I want to know, for Coach Tom Allen, does seeing how you guys run things in a bowl game this week, is that going to be a huge stepping stone for him to kind of come over and get the flow of things here?
I think it's good to see how we operated before he got here. I think Coach Allen will have to operate the way he want to operate. Obviously, he bringing his style of defense to Penn State, but Coach Allen gonna have his own flavor, just like Coach Manning has his own flavor, just like I have mine. So, it's gonna be his.
Next question. Where we go next? All right, back over here. Fourth row on the left.
Dex, can you? What was kind of your reaction to Tom Allen getting hired as defensive coordinator, and what are kind of your thoughts overall on the system that he runs and what he brings to Penn State?
I was out at Purdue for 4 years, and we face Indiana every year as our rival game. So I was very familiar with Coach Allen and the style of defense he played. It was always hard for even Coach Braum to prepare for it. So I'm excited that he's here. He's a good person. I'm really good coach, and excited to get started with him.
Okay, right here, second row on the right, please.
This one's for Adisa or Devon. The senior day was against Rutgers, but there's always that Michigan State game and obviously this bowl game. Throughout bowl prep, have you guys had any time to kind of reflect on your Penn State careers and that this really is the last time you guys will be suiting up?
Devon, let's start with you this time.
Yeah, actually.
Back to the Penn State Football Tailgate Show, driven by Blaze Alexander Family Dealerships.
Blaze Alexander Family Dealerships, celebrating more than 40 years of service to the community. Blaze Alexander Family Dealerships has a vehicle to fit your budget and transportation needs. Home of the $1,000 lowest price guarantee with 19 locations throughout Pennsylvania. I'm Thomas Frank Carr. Kyle left with me on the Penn State Football Tailgate Show. You can hear it here on 99.5 The Bus and
103.7, 104.3 Bigfoot Country Legends.
And, of course, on the Blue White Illustrated YouTube channel. Appreciate everyone showing up today. It's an irregular week. I got back from Christmas vacation on Wednesday afternoon. Thursday, I hit the ground sprinting on a football week. Here we are, sitting here talking about football. We covered this a little bit earlier in the show, but let's talk more about the Penn State offense and some of the subtleties of how we might see something different here at in this particular game. And I think that the place we do need to start is, was the end of the season a mirage? What do you take from playing Rutgers and Michigan State and apply that to this particular game? Because I don't think you can say it's nothing, but you also can't say, after watching that Michigan State team all year, and go, okay, Drew Allar's now arrived. But it is somewhere in the middle, and I don't know what to do with it. So that's what I got.
I take about as much from that Michigan State game as I do my high school lit classes. I remember what happened, but I'm not applying everything that I learned every single day of my life. I'm not thinking about it 24/7, but it's there in the back of my mind. I'm like, okay, this happened. It was a thing. I know kind of what went on here, but like, does it go to my everyday use? Not really.
Yeah,
that's what Penn State's going to do.
The way the Rutgers game played out was particularly frustrating because they did things early in the first quarter, and they did some things in the second quarter that were genuinely better against a good defense. Like, I know that everyone is going to brush off Rutgers. We're going to get to that in around the Big Ten in just a little bit. Rutgers is a good defense. You can't watch football, actually know what you're talking about, and say that Rutgers was a trash team. They had a very good defense. Was it perfect? Was it as good as Penn State? No, but that's the point. Is Penn State's defense was legitimately great this year. But Penn State did some things in the passing game that made sense with 6 days to transition the offense to a new style. When they had 2 weeks, roughly, we saw them do a lot of things that made a lot of sense, and you can check out T. Frank's film room at BlueWhiteIllustrated.com if you want to go back and look at some of the things I pointed out. The way they ran routes, where they ran the routes, how they did things. Michigan State also played terrible defense. Their corners and safeties didn't understand the assignment. Literally, they didn't know what they were supposed to be doing, so there are some big open windows. But Penn State executed things that made sense, and there was some changes that produced a faster offense that could take advantage of those mistakes, because we've seen Penn State play bad defenses and not take advantage of it early in the year. So I do think that genuinely there is some stuff to take from it, but with a month now, how much more of that do you get?
I think we get a lot. We're gonna get enough that you can notice a difference in this Penn State offense. I think you're gonna see no more Mike Yurcich. You get everything that he had done is gonna be out the window. You're gonna see an offense run. You're gonna see the changes. You're gonna see the changes that have been made on the offensive side of things to say, okay, this is the direction this team is gonna go in for the next season. You're gonna see exactly what we think we're gonna see. We're gonna see Drew Allar play really well today. I am confident in him playing really well because he wants to end on a high note.
Yeah.
He's had a real weird year, and he's going to want to say, I want to end on a high note. I want to end on a positive. Yeah. He's going to play really well. And if he plays well, it takes pressure off of Singleton and Allen, who then can finally do something. Yeah. And by that, I mean Nick Singleton. I all season long, I talk on the post-game show about, I just want to see Nick Singleton do.
Yeah, the thing you heard about, but you didn't really see this year.
Yes, I had heard all year. Oh, Nick Singleton's great. He's like Alvin Kamara, but for Penn State. And I'm like, oh, that's exciting. I love Alvin Kamara. I'm a Saints fan. That's great for me.
Yeah,
I've seen none of it, and I know the talent's there.
Yep.
We've seen it in very short spurts.
That's the whole story of the offense, right? Like, maybe they didn't have talent at every position, and the receiver imbalance caused some real issues. But they did have a super talented tight end and 2 super talented running backs, and the offensive line was the best they've had under James. Anyway, the question I think from Allar, and I'm kind of hyper obsessing about this, other than the running game. Wow, this is a very ADHD moment for me. Let me start. Let me step back for a second.
Back it up a little bit.
I think this game is going to run through Allar, Singleton, and Allen, because this front seven for Ole Miss is not gap accountable. Unlike Penn State, I've watched enough film of them. Watched a couple games this year against decent teams where I see muddy pictures that don't make a lot of sense, and usually that means that they're not executing properly, because defense, especially gap accountability, usually looks the same across defense. Doesn't matter if you have a 3 down front, you don't have a 4 down front, you have a 2 down front. There's got to be a person for every gap. Most teams don't 2 gap. Even 3 down fronts don't 2 gap. They don't have a massive nose tackle that takes both A gaps. That style of play is much more rare in modern football. So everyone's got a gap. And I don't see everyone getting a gap in this defense all the time. So that means, especially edge contain, these guys aren't great at edge contain. Cedric Johnson is not going to be there as well. I think that means explosive plays, and Penn State and the offensive coordinators that they have seem to be able to make this team play faster and get to plays that generate more explosion. So Penn State against that weakness, I think that's how the game goes. But to me, the question of this game is Drew Allar, game manager. That has been
the question all year.
What you were saying essentially is he's going to want to play very well and on a high note. I think that's what I want to see. because maybe it's just trying to confirm my prior beliefs in him that he is more than what we've seen. Mm-hmm. What I've seen on film is he can see it. Yeah. He knows what he's seeing. He knows what he's diagnosing. He just has to pull the trigger, and we saw him do that more at the end of the season. So that question, do we find a different answer to it in this game? They play soft coverages. He's not going to get a ton of explosive play opportunities. They play soft shell coverage like we've seen from a lot of teams this year that have frustrated Penn State's deep passing attack. But that doesn't mean you can't find 15 yards in the middle of the field because the vacated zones are in the middle and not on the outside. So that's the biggest thing for me is, predicting that it's going to be the run game. And as you said, I would say it's the flip it. The run game is going to open up some opportunities for the passing game, and Allar needs to deliver in those tight windows to get those explosive plays that we've seen this defense give up. Yeah. We've seen it give up quite a bit.
And it can happen, and it's going to happen. And another factor in that is something that we mentioned earlier but haven't really deep dived on is Trey Wallace is finally back and he's going to play.
And that helps you get those explosive plays.
It does. Yeah. He helps. And pretty much everyone in terms of the offensive side of things on the skill position is going to be here. They're going to play. They're going to be involved to whatever extent they are, which means you've got your full complement of guys finally. All season, like one guy's been out here or there. They're all here today. They've had a month to get ready for this game. They've had a month to figure out the system they want to play and get into it and have Jaywan Sider's vision, I guess, come to fruition. And we are the Lorax. We speak for the people. We want to see Drew Allar play really well today.
It's just more fun.
It is.
It's more fun when quarterbacks are good. And that's been my point about this whole time is I want to see good quarterbacks because quarterbacks are fun.
Yes. And I might be taking what I have heard from fans the wrong way. But a lot of what I have heard is kind of like they want to see Penn State win the Peach Bowl, but they're okay if they don't win. It's not the end of the world. So I think a lot of the pressure that's been on Allar's shoulders all season is kind of off. All bets are off for this game. He doesn't have the pressure of like, if I lose this game, I'm never playing here again because everyone's going to hate me. He doesn't have to deal with that today. It is generally if you win, it's a positive. If you don't lose terribly, it's like, okay, whatever. It happened. We'll go into next season on a more positive thing. So he can play with no pressure. The weight of the world is not on his shoulders today. He can relax. Finally.
Well, we'll see how that plays out. Coming up at noon today, we've got about a half hour more here on the Penn State Football Tailgate Show around the Big Ten, looking at bowl season coming up next on the Penn State Football Tailgate Show.
I thought we were done. I thought the class of 2024 was done. What are we talking about right now?
No, it's not done. Well, the class of 2024 is pretty much done, but the ink is drying on those letters. But 2025 is always a conversation because we're always looking forward. As you can see, I'm in my festive gear. Penn State got an early Christmas present. Pittsburgh Central Catholic cornerback Xavier Thomas, an unrated prospect in the class of 2025, has announced for the Nittany Lions. This is something that Penn State offered him a couple of weeks ago, and it didn't take him long to turn this around. Very private in his recruitment. He posted his first offer from Akron back in January. He posted his Yale offer back in July, and that's an important one to him that we'll talk about here in a second. But Penn State with their 7th commitment in the class of 2025, and it's a cornerback.
That's impressive, that number that you just gave there, 7 already in the class of 2025. I know that previously was one of the highs in the Big Ten at the very least. We'll get to that in just a second, but tell me about what Penn State is getting in this cornerback and kind of his story.
5'10", 160-ish. We saw him at camp last June. Very fluid prospect, a guy that has excelled as a returner, excelled as a cornerback, had 4 interceptions this year, actually started as a true freshman. Of course, never mind that. But started as a freshman on the Pittsburgh Central Catholic defense, which is very impressive to do so, to break into that program very young is very tough to do. Thomas has a bit of a bloodline. His older brother is a starting safety for the Indianapolis Colts, Rodney Thomas. He's had 4 interceptions last year as a freshman. I was going to say that again. As a rookie, he was a 7th round pick out of Yale. I mentioned that Yale offer a little bit ago being special. And that's pretty much what we got on Thomas. He was a very good returner. He opened the final game of the season, a loss to North Allegheny, with a 99-yard kickoff return. But from what we've seen from him mostly has been at camp. He was at the Whiteout camp in June, excelled there. You're curious about the size. Like I said, 5'10". He's a little bit over 5'10" now, so he still appears to be growing. At that point, he was still in the 5'9s. But fluid guy, moves very well, 4.2 shuttle, 4.5 40. Still time to fill out that frame. And we're going to see what kind of player he is, because you look at him, you look at those numbers, you think probably a nickel corner, but I don't think he's that much smaller than the guys that Penn State brought in, especially the guys from Florida, with John Mitchell and Antoine Belgrave Shorter signed on Wednesday. So a bit of a projection here. Could be an inside out guy, could be a nickel guy, but he's a guy that Penn State really, really liked.
Just from a quick look at his film, looks like he's got decent length for his size. Obviously, we'll get all that information, all those details later, and Fitz is on top of all those things. But really interesting, you mentioned fluid. Watching him at camp, he was one of the guys that stood out in terms of being at that camp against guys that were older than him. So, those NFL bloodlines and the ability is clearly.
Now back to the Penn State Football Tailgate Show, driven by Blaze Alexander Family Dealership. It's a long and bumpy road to the Big Ten Championship. Let's see how other teams are faring today. Here's Around the Big Ten, sponsored by Joseph C. Hazel Plumbing and Heating, Sprinklers and Backflows. They're your one-stop for quality, affordable sprinkler systems, HVAC, plumbing, and backflow services. Call 814-355-4841 for a free estimate today. PA number 012698.
Happy holidays from us here in the studio of Seven Mountains Media. Hope you had a wonderful holiday season. One of the things I did while I was out in Utah was watched Northwestern Utah with my family, my in-laws who went to Utah. My wife went to the University of Utah. My father-in-law is a massive Utah fan.
Go Utes, baby.
We went to the campus store and bought swag before the game. So what was it like
going to the stadium?
Here's the thing is any stadium, most stadiums I should say, is impressive. College football stadiums or football stadiums in general, it doesn't matter where they are, they dominate the landscape. At least that's been my experience. I'm a Bills fan going to Orchard Park, and you're coming out of these just residential community, and here's a coliseum. Here's this gigantic structure. The campus is on the side of a mountain. It's beautiful. It's picturesque. And then this thing just rises above all the other, things around it. I think it's 65 or 71,000, somewhere in there. They've expanded since they joined the Pac-12, which is no longer. Anyway, the point here is it was not a great time watching Northwestern defeat Utah 14-7. Utah played all year without their quarterback. And Bryson Barnes, their backup, was in the portal and playing in the game. And probably is not in the portal anymore based on the way he played in that game, because it was bad. Northwestern and Ben Bryant, they did what they do. That defense, I feel like, got better. So Utah's offense, not good this year, right? It's not the same team you saw against Penn State in the Rose Bowl. Their run game was basic. It wasn't very good. Their offensive line was not cohesive. So all of the things that they're good at, they didn't have them. So that's how you get 21 total points in that bowl.
And I want to shout out David Braun, by the way. I mean, he's been talked about all year to some extent, is that he took over this program after what happened this offseason with Pat Fitzgerald.
Before the season.
Yeah, before the season. And they ended up being 8-5 on the year. I think everyone expected them to be 2-10 at best.
Yeah.
8-5 is pretty darn good. Yeah, so he deserves being coach. Impressive. He got the coaching job. It's been confirmed since before Thanksgiving. So just wanted to give him a little bit of props here. And props also, I guess, have to go to Minnesota, who beat Bowling Green.
Yeah, this is a bizarre matchup. I didn't know that Bowling Green went to bowl games. 30-24, Minnesota defeats Bowling Green. We can move on from that. I didn't see the Rutgers-Miami game. 31-24, Rutgers defeats Miami. Once again, Miami incredibly overrated. But they're going to recruit really well under Mario Cristobal. They're not playing very well right now. The game that everyone wants to talk about, Missouri beating Ohio State 14-3.
I don't want to talk about this. It was a terrible game. It was a truly terrible game.
I tuned in late. I didn't see Devin Brown get hurt, but what I saw was the result of not having your number 1 receiver, your number 3 receiver, your number 1 quarterback, your number 2 quarterback, and Chip Trainum, one of your running backs. It's amazing when you take away a team's superpower, how they look very average.
Yeah, with no Maserati Marv, it's a surprise as to what happens. And also, I want to quickly shout out the player you mentioned, the quarterback who is no longer with Ohio State, who is currently up in Syracuse, about to play in the great Carrier Dome, who is also eating dinosaur barbecue right now, Mr. Kyle McCord, the brand new Syracuse quarterback. Yes, we're back, baby.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is what it's like to have a Syracuse grad in the media, which is a trope.
Yes.
Amongst media people, that if you're a Northwestern or Syracuse grad and you're in the media, you're obnoxious about it. I have not come across one until you, Kyle. Like I went in an odd amount of time.
I'm honored.
Yeah, because obviously there's a little bit of a bubble here with all the Penn State media grads. Blizzard warning here in the chat, giving us he's been giving you a critique throughout the show.
Oh,
yes, he's come around on you since the first segment. He thinks that you're excellent, and
so he doesn't think I just love Pop-Tarts.
No.
Okay.
No, I think the whole mayonnaise Pop-Tart conversation threw a bunch of people to start. But he's here in the channel donating in a festive spirit, so thank you very much. Another regular on our YouTube channel. Got a lot of very generous people. And if you want to, check out the post-game show, both here on 99.5 The Bus. We have our own. We go our separate ways after the game. Mine immediately following the game on YouTube. Getting back to that game, though, Ohio State and Missouri, I think it's interesting to point out some of these things. And somebody was messaging me on the message board at Blue White Illustrated about, hey, be interested to see what you think about this offense in this bowl game, especially the run game. And watching, I didn't pay close attention last night. I was just hanging out. The game was on. But that was the thing about Ohio State this year. They weren't great up front.
No.
Their tackles weren't exceptional. Their offensive line, generally, they have some guys that can make some impact plays, but maybe overall is not what you've seen from them from the last 3 or 4 years, especially at tackle. So when you take away Marvin Harrison Jr. and, believe it or not, Kyle McCord, who wasn't C.J. Stroud or Justin Fields, but Kyle McCord was just
good,
a college quarterback, suddenly all of those problems that were kind of wallpapered over, they become obvious and they can't score points. And that's, I think, getting back to the conversation about Penn State this year, that is the most obvious frustration. It's not that you lost to Ohio State and Michigan again.
It's the fashion.
It's that you could have beat them.
Yeah.
You should have, based on the talent. And again, I know that, if you're an Ohio State fan listening to this, you're going to call me a homer, and that's fair enough, whatever. Generally, I have more information and knowledge institutionally about the guys that I watch on a daily basis versus somebody that I scout and watch 6 games a year, maybe. But I've seen enough Ohio State to have a pretty good vibe about what they are and what they aren't on a yearly basis. And this was not a good Ohio State team, because even we've seen in the past where they have lost guys opt-outs to the NFL, they've been able to roll teams. And Missouri's a good team. They're not a complete team. And I think you saw, they couldn't really score a whole lot of points. It was just attrition that they got 14 points late in that game. Penn State missed a big opportunity this year. There's no way around it. They're in the Peach Bowl because they didn't score enough points against, specifically to me, Ohio State. That was the game that they should have won. It was there to win. Yeah. The entire game, you were like, take the game. Someone do something. Find it, please. And it didn't happen the entire game. And it was very clear why everyone was so enraged by it, was that you were just waiting. You were waiting for the Penn State offensive explosion to happen, and it just didn't. And that was the story of the entire year, was the big games happened against Ohio State and Michigan, and just the offense, there was openings. And just no one jumped at an opportunity to try and do something. Yep. And it was just why? That was the frustration all year. It was why are you not doing the thing we know you can do? and the game, and not to re-adjudicate all of this stuff, but really, when you have comparable talent, and I would say maybe even if Penn State isn't more talented than Ohio State, they had comparable talent this year and the better quarterback. I think even if you were to look at both of these guys as disappointments, if you want to look at it that way and have that glass half full about Kyle McCord and about Drew Allar in their first year starting, Allar statistically and analytically was the better player, and you still couldn't score points against that team. And then getting into the Michigan game, letting a team not throw the football and letting them win the game it's inexcusable, and we saw the results of that. Yes. Anyway, getting to the other games coming up. Maryland versus Auburn in the Trans-Perfect Music City Bowl. I am not, Kyle, getting in. I'm not getting trapped into another sponsor conversation about these.
That is in Nashville. That is in Nashville. It's in Music City. That's a fun one. And speaking of fun places to play, two other teams are playing bowl games in Florida in terms of Big Ten players. You have Wisconsin LSU in the ReliaQuest Bowl over in Raymond James in Tampa. Iowa would have loved that Missouri-Ohio State game purely for the number of points scored. They are taking on Tennessee in the Cheez-It Citrus Bowl in Orlando in the Camping World Stadium, which has like every bowl game ever, apparently. Like 7 bowl games happen in that one stadium, which is crazy. And then the last one, of course, being the big one. We got photos of Nick Saban with Mickey Mouse, which was just stunning. And Alabama takes on Michigan.
So fun. It's
so
weird
fun, so
that
happy.
He made Jim Harbaugh look like the engaging, charismatic one in that photo. Like just that one snapshot. It's like, hey, look at Jim Harbaugh being relatable.
Yeah. And they're both enjoying themselves over in California. They're playing in the Rose Bowl, which is, of course, on New Year's Day. It's on the 1st at 5 p.m. The Rose Bowl is going to be a fun game, though. I'm excited for that game.
Yeah, what do you think? Who do you think has the advantage in this game?
I'm going to be honest. I think Alabama does. I think Alabama's played so well as the year has gone on, and you can see the buildup they've been having all year. And you saw them beat Georgia, and you're like, okay, this team is really good. Jalen Milroe's like a decent quarterback. And he is, again, talked about as if he's been terrible, and he's been the worst thing to ever happen to Alabama. And he's not. He's really good.
He got a lot. I think the
early in the year, he got a lot of flack.
But that's the progression you've seen is him kind of learn to play the position a little bit better. Because I remember watching some of those early games, and again, not going and watching the film, but just watching his poise in the pocket, his demeanor of deer in the headlights, does not know what he's looking at. And as he's played, and the comfort level and all those things where he's settled in. The Michigan game, like the Penn State game, is stuck in my mind. I know they played Ohio State and put up, I think, 30 points in that game, but they were so bad against Penn State.
It's terrible. It's a terrible game.
They were not good offensively against Penn State. They were unbalanced. They couldn't throw the football. And they lost an offensive lineman going against Alabama. I have some concerns about Michigan's offense being able to present a multi-dimensional threat to Alabama in that game. So I would agree there. Getting back to our game, circling back to the Peach Bowl, which comes up to you today at noon. We'll be covering that, of course, both during the game and post-game. What's left on what meat is left on the bone that we haven't talked about so far with this particular game?
I mean, number one is, I guess, for me and a lot of people out there, people enjoy knowing numbers, knowing what's going on in terms of the betting side of things. So that is a big part of the game. Is the line throughout most of the week has been 4.5, I believe. It has fallen to 3.5, minus 3.5 for Penn State. So Penn State is favored by a little over a field goal. Which is
in a neutral site.
At a neutral site. And then it is a 49.5 line in terms of points. So they're projecting about 50 points to be scored in this game. So it's going to be a decently high-scoring game per the Vegas, I guess.
I think this shapes up to be a really good game where you enjoy, and it's not like a track meet, right?
Yeah.
So 25 points, 24-25. 3.5 spread somewhere in there. This could be a close scoring game in the mid-20s, which
it's not going to be what Clemson, Kentucky was, where 42 points were scored in the fourth quarter. It's going to be a decently throughout the game, even game.
It feels like both teams come with competency on both sides of the football. It's interesting. One thing that we haven't really talked about a whole lot, and one of the things that was a struggle for me scouting this team, is that I think there's a perception of at least the Penn State fans that complain on the internet, which are the ones, unfortunately, that get the most attention. And my resolution in 2024 is to not react to those people and to have a normal conversation about football.
It's a tough resolution to have.
It is. It's tough, but it's for mental health and for the quality of the broadcast. Just generally, I think people on YouTube, even other accounts that have nothing to do with football, they tend to cater content to the people that are the loudest in the comments, and the people that comment on the videos typically, and I'm not talking about the people that are here on the live stream who are a part of the conversation when it's happening, just people that airdrop comments on later tend to be negative comments. So we have this whole negative conversation. We're having a positive conversation in 2024. But I have talked myself out of the point I was trying to make. The point I was trying to make,
let's hear it,
is that watching this team, Ole Miss, this year, they played so many dual threat quarterbacks that it was hard to find an offense that was similarly balanced to Penn State, where run the ball, 2 tight ends, quarterback from not a huge part of the run game. because you look at Jaden Daniels at LSU, Ashford at Auburn, Milroe, Alabama, a bunch of guys that are dual threat that can break the pocket and change how you play defensively. So some of the issues from this defense, there is an element of that's not a problem this week. But at the same time, they have not been they've been a good defense compared to what Ole Miss has done previously. Talking to Dave Eckert, like, this is the best defense they've had, but this is kind of an average defense. They don't have a ton of talent. No unbelievably talented players like Penn State has. No 5 stars, no Chop Robinsons up front. They don't have an Abdul Carter. Linebackers are a weakness. And they've got a good secondary. Like, their secondary is the strength of the team. So limiting explosive plays, I think, at least 65-yard bombs, throwing vertically down the field, reasonable assumption that they'll be able to stop that. But that middle part of the defense, Penn State was better at attacking the middle part of the defense, linebackers and safeties in that 10 to 15-yard dead zone between the zones. Those windows, I think, is where Penn State needs to attack in this game. And I think that they've been able to do that in games without Mike Yurcich, and I think that you've seen that this defense will give that up. So it's just interesting that people think, and this is my original point.
Yeah.
Sorry to
You got there. You got there in the end.
But my original point is people seem to think that the SEC is ground and pound football. It's wide open football. Ole Miss and LSU and all these teams are playing a very wide open style of football where they're more aggressive, more quarterbacks that present multiple challenges. And it's funny because SEC people think that the Big Ten is 3 yards in a cloud of dust. One of those is actually more accurate and true. And I don't think Penn State fans really have an accurate description of what SEC football is like, because the other thing is a lot of these defenses are garbage in the SEC. Like, a lot of these
their offenses are insane, and they have talent here and there. And then they put up points. They put up a lot of points. It's a common theme. LSU puts up just thousands of points a game. And they have for years. Alabama, same thing. Georgia, same thing. Like, these teams put up numbers. Which is why people think, oh my gosh, these defenses must be still great if they're going up against great offenses. No, they're not.
There's also the lopsided, skewed perception of Georgia, Alabama versus the rest of the SEC. And I think you can have the same conversation about the Big
Ohio
Ten.
State, Michigan.
The whole thing's coming full circle to where we started the show.
We did.
It's wonderful.
Look at that, Team Frank.
And that's good because we're getting to the end of the show.
We are.
Predictions coming up next. And I'm going to make one comparison that's going to go against my prediction.
Oh.
A little bit of a contradiction coming up on the Penn State Football Tailgate Show.
This is for both coaches. What have you guys decided in terms of will you or will you not have sideline iPads and also in-helmet communication for this game?
I'm still trying to figure out what that was. Was it like some inside joke that we were supposed to know?
I guess I was specifically. I'm still not totally.
Okay.
Yeah. But I think the way the NCAA set up the bowl was that both teams had to agree to use the technology. And for whatever reason, we've not decided to do that, so we will not be using it from what I understand. But that was an option.
Yeah, we decided on our side not to. Just we're used to a system in college football how it's been, and I don't know necessarily with the style that we play that would be as beneficial to us as maybe it would be to some other people.
All right, I'm staying on the left side in the third row.
Rich Scarcella, Writing Eagle. This is for Lane and James. Lane, what have you seen from Penn State quarterback Drew Allar? And James, what have you seen from Ole Miss quarterback Jackson Dart?
Yeah, I think he does a phenomenal job taking care of the ball, first off, and commanding the offense, getting the ball to the right place. And then when it's not there, breaks down, does a really good job of vertical scrambling and making plays and moving the sticks. So those guys are always really challenging because they're going to win a lot of games by the style that they play. They complete the ball. They don't turn the ball over. They don't make negative plays. So they've done a great job.
Yeah, Jackson and Ole Miss, I think the thing that jumps out from my perspective is balance. And a lot of times when you talk about balance, people think you're talking about running the ball 50% of the time and throwing the ball 50% of the time. And the reality, they have done that too. I think, maybe the perception of Lane and Ole Miss is throwing the ball all over the field. But their running back is a challenge, and I think they do a great job of running the ball and running into advantageous looks. But the other thing when you talk about balance in my mind is also being able to spread the ball around the field, that there's not one receiver that you have to stop. They got 3 receivers that have all been really productive, probably the best combination of production at the receiver position that we've faced this year. And obviously they've been able to run a ton of plays, and that's a combination of tempo, but just as much tempo as it is offensive success. They've been successful, so they've been able to put drives together and get on the field and get off the field. So.
Back to the Penn State Football Tailgate Show, driven by Blaze Alexander Family Dealerships. It's time to lock it up.
You better lock it up. No, you lock it up.
Here are today's predictions, sponsored by Metzler Forest Products Landscape Center in Reedsville for all your landscaping and firewood needs. Get your project started by going online at MetzlerForestProducts.com.
I'm Thomas Rankar. Kyle Leff with me here on the Penn State Football Tailgate Show. Our last segment, just a few minutes left. We have to give our predictions. This game, to me, I'm betting and I'm believing in Drew Allar. I think he's better than the general assessment of him this year.
Okay.
I've seen too much evidence from his high school and in the glimpses in college that he's going to progress. He's going to get better. He's got his full complement of weapons today, 31-20. Penn State's defense is going to play well, but they're not going to stop everything. I think Penn State is going to put up enough points, and they're not going to get into position where Ole Miss gets to dictate the terms of speed from tempo and game flow by being either ahead or, within striking distance where they can keep running the football. I think they're going to have to chase Penn State at some point, and Penn State's going to be able to put up points. So that's my prediction.
31-20 for you. I had the exact same number of points for me. I had 30-21 Penn State. So same number of points. We had a 1-point difference here and there. I think Penn State's going to play really well. We're going to see the offense do what they have to do, but we're going to see them not get into the goal line as often as we'd want them to. We're going to see a few drives stop a little short, but that's why you have Felkins, because he's great at what he does. And so they're going to get a lot of field goals today. I am a special teams guy. I love special teams. I love it. So I think Felkins is going to have himself a good game, 3 for 3, knock it out of the park, and then we're going to see Penn State win, cover the spread, which is 49.5 points. Bettors are going to be scared because we're predicting the game to be at the line.
Yeah.
But that's when you know a good line is where it has to be.
Yeah, and I think that bears out, like, all the evidence points to the same thing. The one thing I'll say, and this is something interesting that I noticed watching kind of the style of this team from Ole Miss and the way it's built, this team reminds me of the Trace McSorley Penn State offenses.
Okay.
And I know this is before your time.
It is.
Trace McSorley, gutsy quarterback who could make every throw.
Mm-hmm. He threw it on a dime.
Because he technically could get the ball there, barely. Jackson Dart's a little bit like that, where he puts his soul into some of these footballs, where he's getting it downfield to Trey Harris. Trey Harris, Chris Godwin, similar comparison. Dayton Wade, having a 3-receiver threat, and of course Quinshaw Junkins in the backfield. Similar, obviously not Saquon Barkley, but having that balanced threat of playmakers and production, not just the threat of production at both positions, and then an offensive line that lets you down in certain situations.
Yes.
But the quarterback and the skill players make up for that. That is very much a lot of, they play fast, they play, trying to spread things out. They remind me a little bit of those Joe Moorhead offenses. They're a little more run heavy. They're a little more gimmicky, maybe.
Yeah.
But at the same time, in a similar vein, you want to put your money on the thing you've seen before, which is that won Penn State a lot of games. But I think Penn State is more talented in the trenches and overall, so that's why I'm going with them.
And if they are to win today, by the way, they're going to be the first team to win all 6 New Year's Day bowl games. They've won the Fiesta, the Cotton, the Sugar, the Orange, and the Rose Bowl, and they now have a chance to complete the 6 with the Peach Bowl today.
I don't know what you're talking about, because as much as I said my resolution for 2024 is to not get into this, we were having a nice conversation in the chat on the Blue White Illustrated YouTube channel, and then in the last 5 minutes, the James Franklin's never won a meaningful game crowd showed up. Of course, they show up 90 minutes late, waking up late, not being here with the regulars, but we're going to go into the game and have some fun and enjoy whether they win or
Yes.
not, if you're a Penn State fan. That is my hope for you in this new year.
That is a good resolution to have, T. Frank. And as we wrap it up today, it's been fun. It's been fun to be here.
This has been a ton of fun. I appreciate you and, of course, Seven Mountains Media. I'm Thomas Frank Carr. Thanks to everyone who's made all of these shows possible. We'll be back with more in 2024. And enjoy the postgame coming up after Penn State and Ole Miss in the Peach Bowl.
It's a big game today, baby. Big game, T. Frank.
You've been listening to the Penn State Football Tailgate Show, driven by Blaze Alexander Family Dealerships. The Tailgate Show is a production of Seven Mountains Media and BlueWhiteIllustrated.com. Stay tuned for the call of